Welcome to the Brotherly Ballers podcast with your hosts, Jack Vickers and Tyler Herman.
What up, ballers? We are back finally with the long-awaited end of the offseason into the 2025 week 0, I'm going to call it, of the fantasy football season coming at you. So thank you for all of you for your patience. I know everybody's been chomping at the bit for us to get back into this thing. So we're going to get into a lot of initial exciting stuff to kick off the season here. We're going to be doing our buy guys. So our fades at the current draft prices. We'll get into some of my guys next week. We're going to cover some specific NFL news, especially Vikings excitement. And we're going to do a little quick mock draft for you, for those of you who haven't drafted yet, just to kind of do some last quick tips and thoughts on some players on the fly as we pivot along. But I'll introduce my co-host here. Tyler, welcome back. Missed you. How's it going?
Oh my goodness. Football is back. I don't know how it got here so quickly. It seems like it was an incredibly quick summer. I think the little ones helped with that. But at the same time, usually I feel like I'm waiting around for September to get here for football to start. And I feel like this year it was just instantly here. Not complaining, no question. But I'm ready to get rolling in a week.
Yeah, slightly less prepped 6 months ago of doing mock drafts early and often. I feel like last year we were like, I know it's May, but do you want to do a random mock draft just cause? Yeah. And this year was like, oh, cool, we got to get going on this. So yeah, there's lots of stuff to cover. We've kind of had some of our favorite targets that we've discussed kind of throughout that hasn't really changed, it seems like. So it was a bit easier. I don't know how you feel, but it was a bit easier for me to be like, I already know who my guys are this year because I've been doing the same thing every time it comes up. So excited to get into those things, but we're gonna hate on some players first. So as I mentioned before, we're gonna be coming back next week. So we're back to the weekly going into the season. So next week we'll cover week 1 and all of our regular games and everything. This is kind of just a preliminary one to kick things off. So if there's anything you want to see next week, or if you've got any like this or that draft questions and stuff with your main leagues coming up, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on YouTube, obviously, where you're watching this, or if you're listening on Spotify. But if you go and comment on YouTube, we can hit some of your questions up next week. So youtube.com/at the Brotherly Ballers, all one word there. So let's get into stuff just because we want to cover the actual fun things. So really quick NFL news. As always, we're going to do our Vikings 60-second synopsis. So we already covered all of the Vikings offseason moves and then draft pick stuff in our last episode. So if you want to check that out, go back. It's a few months back, and it was kind of right after the draft happened, just doing all of our initial thoughts there. So won't rehash those. But as far as a couple of recent moves, we did a couple of days ago. We traded away Sam Howell to the Eagles after we just traded for him basically on draft weekend. Mm-hmm. So we moved our 6th rounder next year up to a 5th, and then got an extra 2027 7th to get him. So basically got back more than we paid by getting him, which is cool. And then in a corresponding move, signed Carson Wentz, kind of out of nowhere up until like 2 days before, picking up steam to be our veteran backup to JJ. So thoughts on that? I know it's not a huge needle mover, but anything like good, bad as far as him?
I really like it, honestly. I think it's even just having more of that veteran presence in the locker room. Like, not that Sam Howell isn't a seasoned veteran, but he's not Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz had Super Bowl experience, and so I think helping out the young JJ McCarthy is going to be a big thing. You just kind of teach him how to be a pro, right? He's already got one lost season, so he's had a chance to see what it's like to be on the sidelines. And I think Carson Wentz is the quintessential at this point in his career veteran teacher. He's not looking to be like, hey, I'm going to come in and supplant you. I don't think, I think he understands that's not what we need out of him. Him in a mentor role, I think, is great for us. And obviously he's got the Midwest roots. So I think he likes it all the way around.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. Backing up Mahomes last year. So obviously I'm sure picked up some solid experience with him and Andy Reid. And then the year before that was over in LA with McVay. So probably some familiarity with that coming over KOC's system, but I like that he's had 2 very solid veterans. So in addition to what he's seen, he's also like seen some of the better guys to do it with Mahomes and Stafford to maybe impart some knowledge onto JJ. And then kind of cool, that also solidified Max Brosmer from the Gophers shout out as the undrafted signee, being our basically QB3. So really, really cool. He's lit it up in camp and preseason, done well. So it's cool seeing them kind of like solidify that move to give him a shot. So as far as hometown Minnesota people and excitement stuff, we also had news breaking today. Literally this morning, I was texting Tyler being like, oh my God, guess what? So we were in the market for a wide receiver for a bit, obviously with Addison being suspended and JJ being hampered, but likely to play. Just kind of had some some weak depth there. So the reports were in that the Vikings were looking to bring in a veteran receiver and didn't think we would actually pull it off, but we made the move to bring back your boy Adam Thielen.
I love it. The Minnesota boy coming home. I don't think there's anyone more thrilled than him just from a person standpoint. Like his wife Caitlin was posting all over Instagram and picking up their kids from school. If you haven't seen it, it's a tearjerker. But it's absolutely adorable. Like both kids hop in the car and they're like, "When do we get to go? Do we get to go now?" Like they were so excited to. They literally say, "We get to go home. We get to go home."
Yeah.
But you can think, I mean, he was born and raised here, grew up here, went to Mankato State. So it is very much home for them. So I love the homecoming.
Yeah. And it's also like a really, really solid move where literally it's
100%.
not a lot of else depth wise, or he can come in and, I mean, he's still familiar with the system from a couple of years ago. So come in and be a solid, again, veteran presence on top of that for JJ to look to is really going to be helpful. So it's exciting stuff. He's got a lot of weapons. If he fails, it will not be for lack of putting every piece around him. So shout out to Jordan for sending me this tweet, but he was like, it's 2025. Amari Cooper's a Raider again. Thielen's a Viking. Keenan Allen's a Charger. And Brandon Cooks is a Saint. What a time to be alive.
Oh, man. It's just one of those things that just veterans get to the end of their career and they're like, let's just go back where we started. Like it worked here for a long time. We never really wanted to leave. We already know the system. Come on, bring your twilight years back here and let's have some fun for the last couple of years of your career.
Agreed. A few other quick NFL news notes. I tried to just do ones in the past week here because obviously everybody else has pretty much seen these other ones and they're a bit outdated at this point. But Terry McLaurin ended his holdout on Monday, got a 3-year, $96 million extension. So everybody who was kind of holding their breaths, either excited for just Debo to be wide receiver one again or worried about how that affects Jaden Daniels. Good relief there. As I mentioned, Raiders just signed Amari Cooper to a 1-year deal amid Jacoby Myers requesting a trade. We'll see if that happens or not. Their plan is not to move him as of now, but you know how that goes. Joe Mixon staying on the non-football injury list, meaning he's out at least the first 4 games. I say that because I feel like the reports come out and people say, oh, he's out for 4 weeks. I'm like, this does not mean he's coming back 5 weeks. Like there's a real chance that he misses half to like the entire season. Like this is such a lingering question mark issue that we don't know what's going to happen. So very, very scary to draft Mixon right now. Anthony Richardson officially benched for Daniel Jones in Indy, and then the Browns also named Joe Flacco the starter. Commanders traded Brian Robinson to the 49ers amid just kind of like out of the blue reports that was going to be the case, and them loving their rookie Ja'Cory Krosky merit. And then Rashee Rice officially accepted a 6-game ban today. So it was expected he was going to be in for all of September and then out in the middle of the season. He just basically said, okay, let's do it now, and is out for the first 6 weeks. So kind of throws a wrench into things for people that were drafting him, maybe based on having him for the beginning and figuring it out later. But at least we have some clarity on that. So any thoughts on those quick hitters?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is obviously Rashee Rice. Just knowing that outcome, I think is great, and honestly, I think it helps his value versus hurts his value. So you never know what's going to happen. So having somebody in for 4 weeks of the season and then out for 6, and it's okay. Now we got to shake off the rust, but I don't want somebody on my team just fantasy wise that's shaking off the rust in weeks 11 and 12 and 13 when it's the most important weeks. Yeah, so just knowing he's going to miss the first 6, but he still gets to be with the team and whatnot. It's like, okay, great. We know it's definitively probably week 7. Great. We shake off the rust in the middle of the season and have a true and quite likely alpha wide receiver 1 for the back half of the season. I think it increases his value versus anything else.
I also think it makes Travis Kelce very, very interesting. I was already kind of low key in on him, but the fact that he's going to get out to like being a lot, like I think a lot of his and Rashee Rice's targets are very, very similar, whereas Worthy is more on the outside. So that middle of the field thing, I think could get Kelce off to like more of a hot start versus his down season last year. So could be interesting. The only thing to watch for is with how well Worthy did as a rookie last year in the absence of Rashee Rice. Does this leave even more of a window for him to kind of like claim the 1 spot before Rashee even gets a chance to get back? So I'm not sure how that's going to all shake out when all 3 are on the field, but we'll see.
Yeah, and in my opinion, and just quick thought on it, I think once Rashee comes back, he will go back to being an alpha. I actually saw a pretty great tweet, and I liked the comparison. Rashee Rice is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Xavier Worthy is Jamison Williams. It's just that depth of target. They really do play two completely different games, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier Worthy has always been the deep ball over the top guy, in my opinion. He had to have less of that ADOT when Rashid Rice was out last year. So you might see that for the first 6 weeks, but I think once he comes back, he goes back to a lot more hit and miss type weeks where, great, he's going to be usable for the first half of the season. But I think you start to see more so big play Xavier Worthy and lower type games when everybody's healthy.
I hope so, because we know I love Rashid Rice. So we will we'll have to see, but at least we got some clarity on that for the first 6+ weeks. So moving into, we can really pretty much just jump into buy guys because everything else is games. It's not going to start till next week. So buy guys, for those of you that aren't familiar, obviously everyone's heard of my guys by this point because everyone under the sun in the fantasy world who has a show does that. But we made our own little buy guys version last year of guys that we are just super out on compared to consensus versus in on. So kind of the inverse there. It's basically just guys that, we're all in way too many leagues, but guys that you just can't talk yourself into drafting no matter what the case is, even if they fall to you, pretty much don't have any shares of them in almost any league that you're at least drafting in. So could be whether it's due to injury risk, opinion that they're overvalued ADP wise. Maybe it's like a move to a new system. Just for whatever reason, you just can't do it. And we're trying to pick ones that are not consensus obvious guys that the entire community is also out on. So for context, last year, Tyler and I, we both always pick 4. So it's a QB, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We try to be a little bit bold and spicy with them. They don't always hit just like my guys don't. But last year I had CJ Stroud. I was hammering that he was being way overdrafted at like QB 5, and he was like QB 19 by the end. And then Sam Laporta at tight end. He finished tight end 1 the year before that. And then the next year he was being drafted as like top 3. And I'm like, I just don't get it. And that was a nailed one. And then Tyler actually had 3. So I'll let you share those.
Yeah, it's too funny because in his rookie year, Anthony Richardson was actually my guy,
right.
And he was great. And so then he went into 2024, and we did the inverse. He was all of a sudden being drafted as like QB5, and I'm like, guys, you need to pump the brakes here. There's still there's too much. There's still this injury risk. Look exactly what happened. And now we look into 2025. He doesn't have a starting job anymore. It's crazy how quickly the NFL can change. So nailed that one last year. And then Rashad White, I think that one was an absolute stamp for me. He was still being drafted over Bucky, and I was like, this guy is the most inefficient human on the planet. Like, I don't understand. And you don't go and draft somebody like Bucky Irving to not eat into that target share. And obviously he fell off the face. So that was a massive one. And then Olave, I've just never really seen it with him. I've never been a big Olave guy. And he got hurt and wasn't playing well. I mean, 3 out of 4 is not bad.
Yeah, I kept believing in Olave because the talent's there, but it was just always injury, and that one made me sad.
Yeah, I agree. I wish he was good, but if he wasn't stuck on the Saints, I would be so much happier. But poor guy is just there. Yeah. And now he's just going to endure that for the next however many seasons until he slams the table to get traded.
Even more hospital balls than Carr would have thrown with Rattler and Shock about to throw him. So, but yeah, so 5 out of 8 last year, not too shabby. If we can hit 5 out of 8 this year, I'll feel pretty solid. But guess we'll just get into it. Do you want to kick things off with any position in particular?
I figured I'd just go down the list. I can start off with my QB, especially because it's a little bit of a spicy one. People are going to be really mad at me.
Not happy.
I feel like I'm following the same theme, guys.
Not happy about my guy last year.
My QB fade for 2025, Jaden Daniels. I know what you're going to say. He was a revelation last year. Guess who was also a revelation? Anthony Richardson. But don't get me wrong. I know they play very differently, and Jaden's much better protecting himself, much better passer, blah, blah, blah. Rookies coming in, they tend to get the benefit because they don't have a lot of tape on them. Jaden rushed for nearly 900 yards, 891 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's absurd, and Washington had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL last year. They're much closer to middle of the pack this year. I think they're actually 19th out of 32nd, so a much tougher schedule, understandably finishing close to the top of the division. The hardest part for me is taking him in the 3rd round. I think with that type of ADP, I would much rather solidify my running back room or my wide receiver room if I go 1-1, or even an elite onesie and a tight end, depending on who falls there, rather than taking my quarterback. There's just so many other individuals that go even right around there I would rather take Hurts half a round to a round later, like he's going, than Jaden Daniels. So I think a lot of it is the price for me. But at the same time, I think there's also just going to be some natural regression. So I see closer to like a QB type finish. I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but I'm saying I really can't justify the price at an early third round pick.
And I think a big part of it, you touched on regression, like everybody is projecting Terry McLaurin for touchdown regression this year. So, I mean, that directly feeds into the same exact thing. Like he had so many big plays that were scoring plays to Terry that like you take even 30% of those away, then that's a different ball game. So I'm not happy about it because I love Jaden, but I completely get it because the cost, seeing like the early third, I'm like, there hasn't been a draft once where I've even considered doing it. And a lot of that speaks to just the depth at QB this year. So I'm going to go into, I guess, of my four, this is probably one of like the more shock pick ones, but kind of just to touch on the same thing. So Tyler's pick is a guy who lit it up last year and feels like is still being overdrafted. My guy didn't light it up last year and is still being ranked as like one of the elites. And I feel like it's just name base alone. So Patrick Mahomes, for without any further ado. So a couple rounds later, he's being drafted technically ADP 51. So that's like early fifth round if you're playing in a 12-team league. He was the quarterback 12 and the quarterback 13 the last 2 years, and we're giving him quarterback 6 overall draft pick. That's like in the Joe Burrow range, just after the Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts range. Like one, Burrow is going to obviously throw so much more because their defense is bad. Turns out Mahomes' defense is really, really good, and the Chiefs have figured out recently we don't need Mahomes to be the 50 touchdown Heinz sponsorship MVP caliber guy to win games. We can save them for the playoffs and just run the ball and play defense. So I don't really get why he's continuing to be put in that top 5-6 guys. I feel like it's just like looking at NFL versus fantasy. Like, yes, he's a top quarterback skill wise, but he doesn't need to put up the numbers because they're good enough everywhere else. So last year, again, I was just diving into more of his performance because it didn't translate to the ADP, but he didn't even hit a top 12 week at quarterback until week 9. The first 8 weeks he was outside of a QB1. Like he didn't even with bye weeks starting to happen, that didn't happen. Last year, he had career low in yards per attempt, touchdown rate. And then Kansas City as a team, since he has taken over as the starter, they have declined in ADOT, average depth of target, every single year. So his second year, his rookie year, 9.1. The following year, 8.5 was like the MVP blow-up year. Year after year after year continued decreasing down to 6.4 last year. He was also one of only 6 quarterbacks with 19 or more % of attempts behind the line of scrimmage. So it's a lot of those like dink and dunk, manufactured screens, short little dump offs, quick hits to Kelsey, Rashee Rice, that type of thing. And all of the stuff that I've mentioned isn't changing. Like there's no new weapons that are coming in. Rashee Rice is out for 6 weeks, which is still going to affect things. The same coaching staff is happening. Everything worked. They got to the Super Bowl, so they have no reason to change anything. Like it's just, there's nothing that's, I'm reading the tea leaves to make me think there's going to be anything different. So this was another tweet that I came across, but Bo Nix had as many 21 plus point fantasy games in his rookie year last year with 7 as Mahomes has had the last 2 full seasons in 34 games. So you're not only not getting like borderline QB1 production, you're not even getting any spike weeks either. It's like all those 14 to 17 points that are like, yeah, like I could probably stream a guy in a good matchup. And same thing as Tyler's point of like how there's better options around him. There's several guys later than Mahomes that I'd rather have. Like Baker Mayfield's the next one. Bo Nix is farther down. Herbert, Goff is a few rounds later. Like there's all these guys that are also not really runners that can do what Mahomes does, but for like 2 to 4 rounds of a savings. So I just don't get it. I love the guy. Like he's a great player, but he's not a great fantasy asset. So I'm out.
Yeah, I agree. That's a pretty easy one for me as well. I don't understand. It feels like it's so much name recognition that it makes it an easy one for me. I have him nowhere, and I don't have any plans to have him anywhere either.
Yeah.
All right,
moving into running back.
I don't know that everyone's gonna. I was like, I don't know that anyone's gonna like this one either. But for me, I have 0 shares to be on a dynasty team. I have 0 shares of Mr. Devon Achane. He is going as running back 8 right now. His ADP is like 13. So he's going like late first, early second round. For me, this one's kind of a combo of things. So it's kind of the injury scare and some natural regression. So he's coming into the season already with what they've truly called a worrisome calf injury. So he missed 5 games in 2023. He got a full season last year, but I think that wear and tear can certainly affect him coming into 2025. the main thing, I don't see the Dolphins wanting to put that wear and tear on him. They have Jalen Wright. Again, granted, he's hurt currently as well. But when he comes back and them drafting Ollie Gordon, I think they really want all three of those in the mix just to give different looks. And I also promise you, they don't want him to catch 78 passes again this year. That was like, I believe that was 11 clear of the next closest running back, and that would have put him somewhere around the top 15 in wide receiver receptions. Like, it's just one of those things, natural regression, injury, and wear and tear, along with adding two very healthy and very young running backs to the mix. I think they're going to just limit some of that workload, and then some of, again, the natural regression for he's not catching 80 passes again this year makes it tough for me to want to rely on him as my smash running back one.
I almost wore my H-Hand jersey tonight, and I held back because he's been obviously my guy since I traded for him in Dynasty. But yeah, I think injury is the biggest thing. I got relief that they basically came out with a report saying he should be ready for week 1. So that helps. Yeah. The fact that Madison, who was their original backup plan, got hurt for the entire year right off the bat makes me feel better. But yeah, Ollie Gordon's looked great. I don't know. I think if he plays, he's that crazy PPR guy because they use him like a wide receiver. But yeah, I could easily, like, injury has been an issue already in his young career. So makes me scared. As a guy with a late first round pick, he's definitely one that I'm circling the board on, though, coming back early in the second. So we'll see how the draft falls, but yeah, I hope you're wrong on that one. It is an impressive spicy call one though. So an early top 15 pick is a big one.
Yeah, we shall see.
I'm going to go with another guy who was basically in that same position last year, being drafted as a top 6 overall guy. My running back buy guy is Breece Hall, who is being currently, again, ADP 33. So early third round, basically, if you're playing in a 12-teamer. Initial reactions on paper don't make a lot of sense because you're saying, okay, it's a guy who was drafted top 6 2 years ago. Now he's fallen to the third round. So, like, how is this not a steal where I can get a guy that clearly had potential and did it before? He must at least be, like, appropriately valued, not undervalued or overvalued, excuse me. Looking at, again, metrics wise, he's athletic and fast. He's got good size. I think he's like 217 pounds. He's 98th percent RAS score. And 2 full seasons ago, PPR RB2. So even with last year's regression, he was down at only RB19. And the Jets are projected to be PFF's 9th ranked offensive line this year. So on paper, again, looks really, really good. But for me, similar to Tyler's take about it not necessarily being Achane's talent, this isn't about Breece's talent or potential because he obviously has both, but it's more other issues. The head coach, Aaron Glenn, has already talked a ton about Braylon Allen this year, who's been one of the guys that I've been loving and circling at the end of my drafts. Anybody who saw that tweet of him just looking like a muscle-bound monster running around is enough to jump up draft boards. The coach is talking about him a ton. They've also shown it in the preseason already with an almost even split between the two of them, and then randomly including Isaiah Davis, which is just another little, like, dig to make you be like, oh God, please don't make this even worse of a handcuff, like timeshare type of thing. So not to mention the fact that Braylon Allen has outperformed Breece Hall in preseason this year. It's 4.5 yards per carry versus Breece's 3.5. And he's always had issues with inefficiency on the ground. He's made his heyday in PPR and getting tons of targets. So that's concerning. But then the fact that the Jets have also had Braylon Allen in on all of the third down carries in the preseason and all the goal line touches anytime the first team offense has been on the field. None of that has been Breece Hall, even when he's playing. That makes you concerned a little bit. You don't want to read too much into preseason. I get a lot of people out there saying, well, you just want to see different guys like have chances and you want to rest the starters and stuff, blah, blah. But even with all of that stuff aside, we're still talking about the Jets and the chances of them having a rough offense this year in general, making you not want a part of either of the guys on the run game is very, very high. We're going down to Justin Fields, who obviously is a threat to run, good fantasy quarterback. He's kind of the inverse of Mahomes, where he's great in fantasy, but like maybe not great in real NFL. Preseason, he's looked very, very rough too. So like showing all of the offense together, he's got 44% of completion so far, despite having a league worst 3.9 air yards per attempt. So he's not even throwing the ball deep and he can't complete a pass. Makes you think the teams are going to probably just stack the box on defense and make it hard to run the game. And then Justin Fields is also a threat to vulture some touchdowns. So like all of that could take away from Breece's chances to score or even get targets completed to him. So just in the early third round, I just think there's too many other guys. We're going to say this on pretty much all of our my guys, but there's just other people that I like there so much better that are like in the trending upward direction. not getting knocked down and seeming like they're coming off of a bad year. So I just don't see it in Brees. I haven't even looked his way, even if I'm getting to like the end of the third, beginning of the fourth. There's just other guys I'm pivoting to.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's such an ambiguous backfield, and with the new change in everything, all the way down to the quarterback, it's just one that I feel like I should probably have more investment in than I do over the course of the drafts that I've done. But I tend to stay away from that. I know that's not the right thing to do. I know those ambiguous backfields is where you can make your money, but usually you don't make your money back in the ambiguous backfields with taking the highest rated ADP guy. Usually you pivot to one of the other two, and you do the Braylon Allen or whomever's and then reap the rewards that way versus taking the top guy.
Yeah, I just don't see there being any way, because that's putting him at like RB 14, 15 range, something in that. I just don't see there's going to be any way that he flirts with running back 1 production. Like maybe he comes back and does running back 19 or better like he did last year, but even then you're losing value at this point. He's just being drafted too high for how rough it looked, and it's only gotten worse. So, all right, moving in to wide receiver.
All right. Wide receiver. I don't know that anyone's going to like this one either. I tried to get a little bit spicy with these ones. People are just not going to like me. I'm just making everyone angry. That's what I'm here. Poke the bear a little bit. My wide receiver fade for 2025, Puka Nacua.
Hey, that was mine last year.
It was. So a couple things. I mean, the main one that everybody knows about and has heard about the entire offseason is the Stafford injury. It seems like he's going to be fine. So I'm not trying to play too much into that. But I think the bigger thing is the now presence of Davante Adams. I think if nothing else, those two will cannibalize each other. Davante doesn't tend to play second fiddle to anybody, regardless of his age. He's 31, 32 years old now, but he still commands such a target share, not to mention how much more of a red zone monster he is compared to somebody like Puka. Puka's still pretty good red zone, but he's not Davante Adams. Nearly nobody in the history of the NFL is Davante Adams. Yeah. And that's before we go in really what is a run-first offense, and then Kyren Williams, one of the most efficient red zone running backs in the NFL. So just the absolute lack of TD upside, in my opinion, for Puka, along with the addition of Adams already siphoning off a lot of those targets, Davante Adams is better than Cooper Kupp, in my opinion, period. So I just think between losing the red zone opportunities to not only Davante, but Kyren Williams as well, just limits Puka's upside. I don't think he's going to be bad. He's still the best player on that team, no question. But for me, stamping him as my wide receiver 1, and he's going as wide receiver 7 overall in the late first. His ADP is like 11 right now. I just have never found me clicking draft on him, just because I think there's too many other mouths to feed within that offense, along with just any of the potential of Stafford ever getting hurt. If he goes down, that entire offense absolutely tanks.
Yeah. Again, speaking as a guy with a late first round pick in our main league this year, the Amon-Ra's and Nico and Malik Neighbors, all in that tier, I am looking at every single time over Puka, and I might be totally wrong, but
100%.
Like, that's just who I've gravitated towards. And that's not even to mention like the enticing running backs at that point. So I've kind of done the same thing without really having reasons to. So you kind of put it into words for me, but I've just felt that way of like, I don't really want to do it with Puka. So yeah, I get it. And at this point, I mean, it's not like we're saying that they're going to be like 8th round values. Like we're just trying to pick guys that are going to finish below what their ADP is. So below wide receiver 7, there's so many guys that could be 6 top wide receivers above him. So it's pretty easy to see it happening.
Agreed.
Speaking of Aaron Rodgers' former alpha going into Aaron Rodgers' new alpha, my wide receiver pick for bye guy, I put it in the notes, but I was going to say, Tyler, I almost picked Travis Hunter just because I've been not picking him anywhere. And I don't get the hype personally. I don't think he's just going to walk in and be amazing, but so many places are picking him as like their breakouts and value picks of the year, and I just don't. So I almost picked that. So that'll probably be like a spicy take next week of some prediction. But my actual buy guy I'm locking in is DK Metcalf, another guy who's also been picked as like a very favorable, like popular target for a lot of people. So DK Metcalf, ADP 47, so that's a late 4th round pick. Another guy that's on paper kind of similar to Breece Hall. It seems like he's very, very set up for success this year in a ton of places, and people are talking about. He's got 0 target competition. He's an elite athlete, alpha type wide receiver, physical frame. Rodgers has always funneled his number 1 target for years, going back to even Davante Adams in the Jets last year. He didn't look at anybody else half the time. But even if DK has, somebody was estimating like 35% of the pie might be so small it's not going to matter, because this is Pittsburgh where they only run the ball and play defense. So I'm a little bit concerned kind of what the Kansas City Chiefs have turned into. A big part of this is not just Pittsburgh, but it's also the offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, who's just been like where fantasy products go to die. Tyler knows he had him on the Falcons. In 5 of the last 6 years, I found this stat, his offenses have been 20th or worse in pass attempts, with the best ever being 16, including his wide receiver 1 finishing outside the top 30 in 4 out of 6 years. And it's never been higher than 14. So even in like a boom week or a boom year, excuse me. And if you're wondering like, oh, well, who were some of his guys with the Falcons? He had Drake London, but he also has had AJ Brown. And this is guys that are not finishing better than that. Drake London, for context, he was wide receiver 30 and 40 with Arthur Smith, granted, first 2 years of his career. But then the second that Smith is gone, he goes to wide receiver 5. Like, I know it's not going to be that drastic, but it still goes to show you like his offense, while it might work overall, it doesn't benefit alpha wide receivers necessarily. Going away from Arthur Smith into DK himself, I feel like he's another guy that we talk about every single year, kind of like Mahomes, of like, he's an elite guy. He's going to be blown up this year. And it's like, he doesn't do it in fantasy, and yet we still keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. So he hasn't been above wide receiver 20 in fantasy points per game. So even accounting for injury missing for 4 straight years, including last year where he was wide receiver 33 and it is being drafted in the late 4th round. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. The Seahawks, if you're like, oh, well, yeah, but it wasn't a good passing team. Pittsburgh isn't either. But B, the Seahawks ranked 5th in pass rate and 6th in pass attempts. They were throwing the ball like crazy. And Geno's not great, but he's he's decent. He can get the ball to his guys. DK got passed by JSN last year. So it's not like a wide receiver couldn't figure out it in that system. It was just that DK couldn't. So I feel like I like him as a best ball target this year. I think he's going to have some spike weeks pretty much just whenever Rodgers gets a couple of touchdowns and at least one of them goes to DK because there's nobody else. And he's probably going to pepper him around the goal lines. There's going to be some weeks that this looks wrong for me, but I just don't think that like the team that doesn't throw to their wide receivers and DK who hasn't produced recently, it's not going to change because it's a worse situation now. So same thing I'm going to keep echoing every other pick so far. There's better upside guys. In the 4th, you can get like Travion Henderson, who's surging right now, Jamison Williams, Tedero McMillan, like all young or rookie guys that are poised for breakouts in settings and systems that make sense. So I don't get DK. I feel like I'm finally out on him, and it's just going to be a guy that we continually wait to do what his potential was supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a hard one for me because I love everything that is DK. And so when I heard the rumors that he was going to get traded, I was like, yes, I could finally get a DK jersey. Like, I was never going to own a Seahawks jersey. I can't do it. It just in my heart of hearts, I can't do it. And then they're like, he's going to Pittsburgh. I'm like, how did he go to the one team that made it completely and utterly worse? So I love DK with my heart and soul, but man, Arthur Smith is just a place everybody goes to die.
Yeah, agreed.
No, man. All right.
Finally,
my tight end. This one, I don't feel great about this. I don't feel great about this one. This is my least confident of my fades, but for me, I'm going to go with the TJ Hawkinson. I feel like this is one I could be very wrong on, especially when you think of, we're just going to call him a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy. Tight ends tend to be those security blankets. But for me, for this one, it's much more so about the ADP and who's going around them and knowing that there's so many other tight end targets that I like that actually come even just slightly later. So this one's more an ADP basis for me than anything else. I would much rather come out of a draft with a David Njoku or Evan Engram, and I would feel much more confident truly almost 2 rounds later than with somebody like Hawk who's going as tight end 6 in the middle of the 5th round. And for comparison, individuals that I've seen ADPs within 5 spots above and below him is Tet, Jamison Williams, Calvin Ridley, and Jalen Waddle. I will take all 5 of those individuals. And again, that's not just people above him. Those are individuals above and below him across those 5 spots. So it's just one of those in a weird ADP spot in the 5th round. I'm not stamping my tight end in with a rookie QB when I like the others in more established systems and a little bit more known, or the rookie swing with Tet much more than Hawkinson for me. So not my most confident fade, but for me, it's just I like other players around that area much more, and I can get a tight end that I'd be plenty comfortable with even a round or 2 later.
Yeah, totally agree. My take is going to be very similar, or I'm going to make a similar point in a second here. But last year, my buy guy for tight end was Sam Laporta, and this year it is also Sam Laporta. So apparently I just hate him. I don't mean to target him, but it's kind of the same situation where it's like, he just, like my other picks, it doesn't make sense why he's being drafted as high as he is. It's not even necessarily like he's drafted as tight end 4. I don't have a problem with that at all. I think he probably will be the tight end 4 or like 5, 6 in that range. It's just that tight end 4 should be here and it's being put up here for some reason. So last year's ADP was 28. That was way too high. It almost doubled to 54 this year. And I still feel like it's too much just because kind of like you talked about, there's guys we like a little bit later, but also on the flip side for me, I'm like, I could reach like 1 round earlier and get Kittle, who I feel like is several steps above, where it's like, if I'm going to go early tight end, let me just do that. I'm actually kind of out on the Bowers and McBride piece because they're so high this year, like early second to late second. But if I'm going to do it, Kittle feels like the best value. And if I'm not willing to do that, then just wait. Like a mid-5th for Laporta, kind of the same thing as Hawk within the same 12 picks or so, just doesn't make a lot of sense. It just feels like a no man's land thing where you can just go a lot of other directions. And then the fact that obviously the offensive coordinator is changing. Ben Johnson loved using tight ends, but now moves to Chicago. We don't know what the new offensive coordinator is going to do, but all reports so far is that he's trying to emphasize the vertical passing attack and like getting Jameis and Williams more involved. So like, not to mention all of the other mouths to feed in Detroit, but I just don't love that when I don't feel like I can rely on Laporta week in and week out. Like it's going to be very boomer bust. And I don't want that with tight end when like you can just punt it and take somebody in the 12th round and get the same boomer bust type of thing. Hopefully I'm not still saying this on Laporta the following year, but I'm not looking at him in any draft I have.
I feel very similarly. For me, it's the main one for me always in Detroit is just there is so many mouths to feed. And I mean, the talent is there, no question, but exactly to your point, there's just other individuals around that area that I feel much more comfortable with being like, I can fill out my team or a flex spot with the same type of production and feel like I get a similar-ish Laporta production 2 or 3 rounds later.
Right. Yep. Agreed. All right. So that's our bye, guys. Please tell us why those are horrible takes and why they're wrong. But hopefully we can nail a few of those and talk about them as the year goes on. Next episode, we're going to do the my guy picks and then the diamonds in the rough, which is basically our like favorite but super, super late value guys that we aren't counting on starting. So stay tuned for those, as well as a bunch of the other games we're going to kick off next week. We won't cover those, but instead we're just going to get right into a mock draft here to get a little bit more into like the in-depth draft analysis. So we're joined by at least one of our friends here, Glick. Shout out to you for making it not completely AI as Tyler pulls up the draft board here. We're going to do a fairly standard setup. So it's going to be 1 QB, half PPR, so nothing crazy. I added a 3rd wide receiver in there just so that there's a little bit more emphasis on that in the starting lineup, but 1 flex, 1 tight end, screw defenses and kickers. So that's what we got. We have AI here, so it should move fairly quickly. I put myself at the 4th pick. Tyler is down at pick 11 just because we felt like it. And Glick looks like
totally
he's going to
random.
pick 8. So let me actually get into the mock draft here and we can kick things off and see what happens. So do our best to talk. I'm not going to list off every single pick. You can watch along on YouTube if you want to see, but we'll try to do our thoughts as our teams come up here. So kicking things off, sitting at 4, Jamar, Barkley, and Gibbs all go, which is weird because I thought Bijan would have gone, but apparently he's the 3rd overall. So the only other ones I'm really in consideration for is JJ, and obviously I'm scared with the whole hamstring thing. We don't know. We assume he'll be fine, but it's not enough for me to pick him over one of these other guys here. Obviously, CD is the next wide receiver available, and then Derrick Henry's at 7. That seems a little higher than I would have expected, but even with how great Derrick Henry looked, obviously there's the McCaffrey factor. I just think that like everything all of them can do, Bijan is also in that same consideration. So pretty easy for me. Had this been like Saquon or Gibbs instead, maybe I would have had a tougher time, but I think that's still a pretty easy top 4 picks that you'll see go. So
yeah, that's going to be my question for you, is because I don't know that there's going to be any draft that Bijan doesn't go at least 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I don't think I've ever seen him fall to 4th. So I was curious if you're in that spot and you get a Gibbs versus a Saquon versus a JJ or CD. What's kind of your thought process? Because it feels like 4 start to where you at least question, being like, do I go the 1st wide receiver or I guess the 2nd wide receiver after the alpha that is Chase?
Yeah, I mean, if I had some more clarity that JJ was healthy, I would feel a lot better about that. I think I lean either of Gibbs or Saquon over CD just slightly
Same.
because I think Pickens coming in is going to be a little bit, not going to ruin him, but enough for me to go the other two. Between Saquon and Gibbs, it's really tough because I'm nervous about Saquon with the workload he had last year, but then Gibbs has so many other competing options. So I probably lean Saquon like 51-49, but it's close.
Yeah, totally fair. Down at 8, Glick went Malik Neighbors, so interesting. It makes sense in like a half PPR. So for me, down at 11, Amon-Ra St. Brown fell all the way down here. I don't really expect that to happen too often.
Yeah,
that he's going to be
that's late.
tail end of the 1-2 turn. So I will certainly take that. And then H-An and
come back to you.
oh no, H-An and London go right there. And for me, this is a pretty easy one in a half PPR league. I don't mind going wide receiver heavy because there's actually a lot of mid-tier running backs that I really like this year. And I think I'll actually have at least one or two of them and in my guys and diamonds. So we'll tease that a little bit here. But I think it would be incredible if I started, if I was on pick 11 and I started with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Nico Collins, I'm feeling absolutely great about what we're doing. So for me, second round pick, I'm going Nico.
You didn't want to do H-An and Puka, is what you're saying.
I did not.
Okay. Well, no, I would have gone Nico easily there too.
Yes.
I expect Amon-Ra to go a little bit higher. I feel like
Me too.
CMC, Neighbors, and Henry at 7, 8, 9 is kind of interesting. I would have thought maybe a little bit later with some adjustment. But yeah, it's kind of a toss-up those back half of the first. I don't think you're going to see this a lot in home drafts, but Josh Allen and Lamar both going mid-second back-to-back is kind of interesting. So not that those were in consideration for me, but Josh Jacobs would have been really nice. I liked him. Jonathan Taylor I like better now that Daniel Jones is the quarterback. I don't know how to feel about Brian Thomas because he was so big as a rookie. But then obviously they bring in Travis Hunter, and I don't trust Trevor Lawrence, so who knows? Yeah. Bowers, I talked about, is a little bit too early for me. Him and McBride, I'm out on. I kind of want to see what the running back start looks like in this and see if I can pivot to wide receiver. Ladd, I kind of am the same way. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. So between Bucky, Kyron, James Cook, I'm out on Chase Brown. I'm actually personally the highest on Chase Brown, so a little bit of a switch from ADP ranking, but I'm going to do that just to see what that looks like. Bijan and Chase seems like some crazy volume and scoring potential, so that could be very interesting for me. Tyreek, no consideration, coming back around after some of the running backs and receivers, and finally Bowers goes. McBride, I'm still kind of out on, so I'm kind of starting to look a little bit farther down. This is the point where I wish that I hadn't gone running back, because Amari and Hampton is very, very interesting for me, but I don't know that I really want to lock up my flex before touching any of my 3 wide receiver starting spots. So looking back down, I mean, if you're a little bit later in the first, I like going Kittle over McBride. I don't think you can justify it straight up for the two of them. So I'm kind of in a sticky situation here where I don't love a lot of the options between each other. Between Higgins and JSN is kind of where I'm at right now. Because I went Chase Brown, that kind of limits the T. Higgins option. So I don't love this, but I think I'm actually higher on JSN than Tyreek. So I'm going to go him. I'm not loving how my team has started so far, but that's just kind of what I'm trying to play around with a little bit. So had I not had Chase Brown there, had I gone Jonathan Taylor, Bucky or something like that, I probably would have gone T.
Yeah, I think that makes sense as well. Sometimes those early ones can handcuff you, but I would have went with the same option for you there that you did as well.
Glick goes Kittle,
and I love
that
Chase.
value in the late third.
Yeah, I agree. Even Trey McBride in the mid third is kind of crazy. All right, so Tyreek does go. Omari and Hampton, Kittle, Breece Hall, T. Higgins. That brings me down to Jaden Daniels in the third.
Hey,
no,
all of your guys
or Hurts. So if I'm looking at, I went to wide receiver. If I'm looking at the running backs, I don't feel great having like a potential of a Kamara or KW3 out there. So a lot of running backs went really early. Usually a couple of these will sometimes get depressed where I might get an Omari and Hampton somewhere in the late third. But wide receiver wise, I mean, all of these guys are great in a half PPR. So I think a running back would come back toward me. So I can just lock up volume and I would take somebody like Mike Evans here. Just knowing that only one running back is likely going to go after me because they're going to go potentially running back, wide receiver to kind of even out their team. They happen to go running back, quarterback. So then I can still get somebody with a high amount of volume. And I could go Kenneth Walker. I could go Chuba. Any of these running backs I would feel not super comfortable with as my RB1, but I think they're all at least safe, if nothing else. And I've got some already incredible wide receivers on my team to balance that out. So for me, this is kind of a tough one. I'm pretty high on KW3. I mean, I know he has had a lot of injuries, so I'm not super confident about it. But for me, I always seem to be a James Conner stan, and it's just like he's always here and he's always undervalued, but he always seems to return somewhere around even like mid RB2 numbers. So for me, just playing the safety move on there, I'm going to go with James Conner over KW3 or Chuba.
Did you have any consideration on Marv or Garrett Wilson over Mike Evans? Because I think consensus is that's the order, but I know you like Evans a little bit more.
I kind of like the consistency. I mean, from what he's have, Marv was so boomer bust, and I know again Kyler being hurt. We'll see if that changes. And then Justin Fields is projected like, I think it's something crazy. Future draft odds came out for player props. His over under passing yards was somewhere around 800 to 1,000 less than the next quarterback. He was only projected like 2,500 passing yards, and the next closest was like 32 or something crazy. So I think just they're going to make that a much more rushing offense, and they're going to be just fine, like we mentioned before, nearly a three-headed monster plus Justin Fields. I'm not saying the target share isn't going to be there, but I don't see the upside when I can get somebody like Mike Evans, who's nearly almost guaranteed 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's fair. I am going to pick one of my picks here and then just talk on both of them as we go around. I was looking at wide receiver there. I wasn't going to go Burrow or Mahomes, obviously. Didn't like any of the running back options available that at least wouldn't come back. And then honestly, I kind of didn't love that pocket receivers either. I talked about Terry regressing. Yeah. I've never really been a DJ Moore guy, and now they have even more mouths to feed. I picked DK as my buy guy, so I wasn't going to do that just for the sake of the bid alone. So that kind of eliminated a lot. I don't know that I felt good about Sutton as my wide receiver 2. Rashee Rice is needing to change his ADP based on all of the news. So I was looking a little bit farther down, and I think Devontae, just of any of like the top 5 to 6 guys available there for what Tyler talked about earlier when he was hating on Puka, makes sense because Devontae has that capability. He showed it last year even, and while he might not be the number 1, it's going to be a 1B situation. So don't love JSN and Devontae as my 1-2. It kind of feels like it'd be better as like a 2-3 situation. But when you go running back heavy, and I love those 2 guys, I feel a lot better. I also didn't even need to use most of my time here because what my layup pick is going to easily be here. And I'm just going to take Tet at 504. Even more consideration because it's a 3 wide receiver starting setup, but same type of thing. I didn't feel as confident on Harvey or Pacheco at running back. The other receivers, maybe Jameson Williams I like. Otherwise, I probably would go Kelsey, but Tet seems like an auto pick for me at that point. Feel very, very like he is so much better of a feeling as my wide receiver 3 than I feel about my 1 and 2s. So they're all very similar, like 2s to me.
Yeah, I agree. I love that. This just for the sake of who else is around here, in the 5th round is about where I'd feel comfortable with Rashee. This kind of late 5th, early 6th is where I feel pretty comfortable with. I know you're going to eat it for 6 weeks. It's harder in leagues like ours where we don't have an IR spot. So he's not eligible for that. Suspensions aren't typically eligible for IR spots. So when I'm looking at my team construction, going 3 wide receivers and somebody like James Conner, before somebody like Isaiah Pacheco got hurt, we talked about it. They're a team that's very interested in running the ball and controlling the clock. And so before Pacheco got hurt, his first few games, he was killing it. He was on pace to be like RB12 or something like that. So getting him in the 5th round where I think he's fully healthy, that offense does bounce back. I love having James Conner and Pacheco as kind of my mid-tier running backs when I've got awesome receivers.
They're great 0 running back early target guys.
JMO, and there you go, Rashee Rice. If he would have been still there, I would have gone back. If I wouldn't have gone Pacheco, I could have seen myself going Kelsey here. I don't really love a lot of the running backs. The main one would be somebody like Tony Pollard is likely going to be my option here with 3 wide receivers. Any of these wide receivers, I really do like Jalen Waddle. I think this Tyreek Hill situation is going to be kind of crazy. I feel like this is going to be a continuous thing. He's still not practicing. I think we might see alpha Jalen Waddle. I'm going to tease that a little bit. I got some info for you next week. But for me, with Tajay Spears being now officially on IR for the first 4 weeks, Tony Pollard early in the season is going to deliver so well for fantasy managers. Having Cam Ward is going to make that offense increase. So I love Tony Pollard as my third running back.
Shout out to Glick taking Waddle. His back-to-back picks, because we didn't talk about last round, but Pickens I really like there at that spot. That like mid to late fifth I think is a sneaky undervalued guy there. And then Waddle, I think, is also very interesting. I would have easily taken him over the next three that went. So, surprisingly, I wasn't expecting him to go here, or to still be here. But we kind of talked about it a little bit ago. I'm sort of high on Kelsey this year, not like my guy potential, but enough that I think he's like undervalued because of how rough last year felt. So I think the fact that with Rashid being out for the first 6 weeks is only going to help that. Where as bad as I think Mahomes is fantasy wise, he still finds Kelsey. And I think Kelsey was, if you listen to his clips from his podcast, he was pretty frustrated and pissed about how he felt like he did last year. So I think knowing him, he will have done enough, even as an older guy, to come and bounce back. So I've got one other guy that was in consideration for my lock pick, assuming Kelsey was gone, but I'm taking him just because I think it's the right value there at the late sixth. Damn it. Missed. Another one of my circled targets is Calvin Ridley. I'm loving him this year. Literally nobody else of those 6 picks was even remotely in consideration, but Ridley going hurts because he's my kind of late 6th target guy. It's just the fact that Kelsey was there kind of bumped it down because I already had my 3 receivers locked up. So now at this point I can kind of go anywhere. I mean, I'm pretty balanced, so I can go whoever I take is my flex or my starting quarterback. Nobody goes to the bench, but looking at the top guys, I'm not really in love with a lot of people that are up there, so it doesn't feel great. This would be the situation where, like, in hindsight, maybe I wish I went Ridley there, because even if Kelsey went, I could have then pivoted to, like, Andrews if he slipped, or Evan Ingram a little bit farther down, because now it feels like any of the guys I like, I'm really reaching on. Based on only having 2 running backs and feeling very safe in who I do have currently, that kind of makes me lean towards Caleb Johnson a little bit more, just because I can wait and see. And if he does get the work over Jalen Warren, it could be pretty interesting in Pittsburgh. I don't love that pick, but I think based on how my team is made up, that's where I would go. Had my team been anything else, or had I already had 3 running backs instead of 3 receivers, I wouldn't even consider Caleb at that point.
Yeah. Glick goes Rome Odunze. I like that. Jacoby Myers just went as well. He's obviously one of my guys that's always there. At the top of the board right now for receivers is Olave, QB Bo Nix, and then Debo, Jordan Addison, who again suspended for the first 3 games, Jalen Warren, Ricky Pearsall. It's going to be a good early target with Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk hurt and likely not going to play week 1. And obviously Ayuk's probably not going to play until week 7 or 8 or beyond. So PPR-wise, Ricky Pearsall is certainly in the mix there. As much as I've continued to say I don't like Chris Olave, he's kind of with it being a 4th receiver at this point in the 7th round. It feels like, hey, if he figures it out for whatever reason in a New Orleans system, he could be a good wide receiver 3, a usable wide receiver 3. I don't love it, but I feel so comfortable with the rest of my team. I like the upside swing more than anything.
Yeah, agreed.
Debo goes, then Stephon Diggs, 2 guys that I've really never had any consideration for. I should probably have a little more for Diggs than I do with how Diggs may looked at.
Yeah.
But he, just for whatever reason, hasn't really been on my target list. Jalen Warren, again, interesting here, but I think I'm going to go with somebody that can give me some early returns with like a Ricky Pearsall here.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp is interesting, but I think in Seattle, I think he's just kind of over the hill. So I'm gonna give somebody with a young guy who's guaranteed to get the target share, split it with Kittle for a while along with CMC. So I'm gonna go with Pearsall.
I was gonna say, as you click that, if you didn't already have Mike Evans, was there consideration for Igbuka there, just because he's your boy?
Yeah, I do love me some Emeka Egbuka. He's going to be my guy. That's pretty stamped within there. At 95, sometimes I've gotten him in the 9th. Usually it does have to be an 8th reach. Usually there's somebody else who's really understands that it's like Godwin is still kind of hurt, even though he's not going on IR. I still don't expect him to play at least week 1, potentially even week 2. They said he's going to be back between weeks 2 and 5. That's a big range. So that tells me he's not all the way back. So somebody like Ibuka is going to be able to step in pretty quickly and maybe be able to establish himself. And Tampa Bay runs a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So I think even when Godwin comes back, there's still going to be a place for him as long as he's performed.
And they've already, like, Kate Otten is hurting. They've already lost a couple of other wide receivers. So it's really like Mike Evans and him at this point. So
yeah, Jalen McMillan on
for the
year. Yeah, on NFI or IR not eligible to return list. So officially out for the year. So if for whatever reason you know that name, you can just totally take him off your draft boards.
That was brutal. That derailed my plan. That's why I should just take my people I'm targeting more than the value. But I thought there were a handful of other players there I should have been paying attention to. Tight end team 1 and 2 already having tight ends, but I basically had queued up either Javonte or J.K. Dobbins because I very much view them as like the same type of player this year, where like veterans used to have their chances, move to new teams, aren't great, but people are devaluing them because other people are there when, like, I think they're still going to get the work. I probably lean J.K. Dobbins a little bit more because I think there's a little bit more clarity there, but so many people are hyping up RJ Harvey that I'm very, very in on Dobbins this year because I think he's going to just start as the starter and Harvey will get worked in more as he goes. But Dobbins was very, very good when he was starting last year. So as for who I actually should take, I should probably look at the spots at this point. I don't have a plan, so I'm going to get a little bit spicy here and get a different running back farther down my board, but a guy that also isn't being talked about a lot. I think everybody, once B-Rob got traded away, was all on the Bill Krosky hype train, and I think people are not realizing how much this is going to impact Eckler just being a lot more used, even if he's not efficient. So it's not pretty, and obviously I would have liked to have gone Dobbins instead of Egbuka and figured out another receiver after. But I think Eckler in the 9th is very, very good value for what he could be on a good offense.
Yeah, well, that was brutal. Tyler Warren goes as the second tight end to Team 9.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure why he would have taken a second tight end. Thanks, AI. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
So Glick goes Josh Downs, and I actually love Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason in the 8th is awesome. I could see him just truly taking over the backfield entirely. So Tyler Warren, of all things, goes. Justin Herbert goes. So for me, when I get down into this area, when I'm looking in the 9th round, I'm looking for, if I don't have it yet, I'm looking for my tight end. I'm looking for Njoku or Warren. QB wise, I'm looking for Kyler and Justin Herbert. Those are kind of my tail.
You're high on Kyler this year.
Yeah, I don't mind Kyler. They both want to run more than they have in previous years from reports. So I think, again, just insulates that floor a lot. So if I'm looking at other tight ends, just because I'm here and talked through my time, I don't mind leaving with Tucker Kraft. I think he's one that the wide receivers all just kind of eat into their own target share, and they all feel like much more vertical threats. I'm curious to see how Matthew Golden does, but Tucker Kraft has just been kind of a consistent individual for Jordan Love and played with him now recently, and the others have all been hurt. So I think that volume is going to be there. He's kind of the last of the tight ends that I want. So agreed. I kind of want to come away with somebody Tucker Kraft or above. Otherwise, you're going to nearly be streaming tight ends for the rest of the year. And then for me, I could potentially look at QB just because I'm here. For me, I probably will go it just because, again, it's very similar. I'm at the tail end of all of these tiers, the Kyler Murrays, Justin Herberts, Goffs, and Purdy. After that, you're looking into like Dak and Stroud and Caleb Williams. I don't mind leaving with Dak. I don't love it, but I think just, again, with the passing volume that they have in San Fran, leaving with somebody like Brock Purdy, he tends, as much as a hater as I've been on him his entire career, he tends to perform pretty consistently as a back-end QB1.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Glick goes Krosky Merritt like we were talking about. So
nice.
Love that. Obviously, I think it's a coin flip of which one of those two does more. Krosky's probably more potential, so I like that, especially late, kind of like as a Jordan Mason pairing. I'm still looking at quarterback here too. I probably would have gone Purdy if he was there, but the next one's up, Stroud, and I have notoriously not been a Caleb believer, so I don't really find either of them interesting. If I'm actually playing the draft for once, the 3 teams after me also have quarterbacks, so I don't even need to really consider that at this point. I already got my tight end, so I mean, I'm not really worried about any of the guys there. At this point, I'm between 2 running backs just because I feel very good about my 4 receivers that I currently have. And these running backs could not be more polar opposites. One is young and has not had his chance to break out yet. I talked about him earlier, and he's Braylon Allen, a little bit farther down. The other one is the complete opposite, and I think I'm going to go him just because ADP at this point. But as inefficient as he's probably going to be, he's going to get the work starting out because of the Joe Mixon issue, and Nick Chubb's going to be there. So as my 5th running back off the board to maybe start the season off a little bit interesting while Caleb Johnson doesn't get the work, Chubb is a nice pairing, albeit gross, for one of those rookie guys that you have to kind of like wait to build up time on. So if nothing else, more of a guy that I could just drop after the first couple of weeks if he just looks god awful in that Houston offense. But something that you can kind of play with depending on what waivers blow up after the first week or two. So team 2 went QB. So back to, or another QB, I should say. At this point, I think because I feel good at a lot of other spots, I look at wide receiver just because I've got more running backs at this point. I try to stay balanced if I can, but it's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out that way. So there's not a lot of receivers that I like anymore at this point. So I'm glad I got 4 like decent options locked up. I think I go quarterback just to make sure that the AI doesn't do anything screwy. So I'm going to bypass Caleb here. And I'm going to go a guy that I expect to bounce back a lot more this year with the entire offense. And I'm going to go Drake May just because I think he can run, but he can also pass. They brought in Diggs, who was the savior for Josh Allen, kind of turning his passing around. So I think that's a good spot in the 11th round for me. Glick stays no QB, getting Keenan with the Chargers. Love that.
I love that. Yeah, he's kind of been the forgotten one, but I think he's going to be reintegrated very quickly into that offense. Again, Ladd's still going to be that alpha, but he's done good on deeper targets. So I think Keenan, they're not going to ask him to just be like, hey, by the way, go run 12-yard 8-outs all the way down and come run back. I think he's going to be a lot more of the slot guy, and I think Ladd maybe gets some more of those long ones. He wasn't necessarily just a slot guy in college and at Georgia as well. So I think Keenan Allen will certainly have value, if nothing else, for PPR leagues. He's not ever going to be a 120-yard guy. He's going to be 6 receptions for 60 yards. So in a full PPR league, he's going to get you 10 to 12 points every single week, and you're gonna love it. Wasn't paying attention whatsoever, so I'm gonna look at my running backs. And since you talked about him, we're gonna go with Braylon Allen just because he's right there. And I've only got 3 running backs, so now I've got my 4th.
Yep, I love that.
For whatever reason, kickers go. Thanks AI. And
I thought I took him out. My bad.
No, which is fine. Tajay Spears, again, not necessary whatsoever. Already got my QB. Already got my tight end. So I'm looking at kind of wide receivers and continuing to fill that out. I really don't love a lot of the tail end wide receivers.
3 receiver.
It's
team.
very ugly, and thankfully I don't need any of these guys. For me, if I get to this point, you know what a lot of these people are. So for me, I just go with somebody who I don't know what he is and could potentially break out. So I would get somebody, go with Mizzou, go with Luther Burden.
Again, guys that you can just cut if you need to, if somebody else blows up, but at least it's like a shot versus, I got my veteran that's going to always score me 5.5 points.
Yeah. Like if you're staring there and you're looking at Luther Burden or you're looking at Christian Kirk, just take Luther Burden. There's no reason. There's not many worlds, if any worlds, where Christian Kirk all of a sudden comes back to 5 years ago Christian Kirk and is a startable every single year. Luther Burden could do that. He could all of a sudden be like, hey, by the way, in this new Ben Johnson offense, Luther Burden just became the slot Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Right. Like the odds are that Christian Kirk outscores him. The odds are high on that, but like it will be only if they both are bad. There's no world where Kirk is going to all of a sudden be good. There is at least a chance where Burden or like Trey Harris, like one of these rookies, becomes something. Yeah. My target was going to be, I was looking at wide receivers too. Mine was Marvin Mims. I really like him there. I also like Darnell Mooney, who went right before. Had I needed running back, I was looking at the Jerome Ford or Dylan Sampsons of the world. Glick grabbed Ford. I really, really like that in Cleveland just because that's the only options there are there. So Ford was serviceable last year. Sampson has looked good in preseason, so either one of them is worth a shot. At wide receiver, it is so gross. There are so minimal guys that I even like at this point. So I'm going to go a little bit farther down the board just because I don't need anything else. And I'm going to go actually Ford's teammate in Charles Tillman in Cleveland because he's the 2 clearly right now. And there's not necessarily a guarantee that he's worse than Judy. It could very, very well be possible that they're closer than people are putting them at. And Joe Flacco at least gives me some tiny confidence that they will at least have a passing game. So
I agree.
There's that. Again, defense and kickers are really throwing this off, so it doesn't matter a ton here. But I'm feeling pretty solid balance wise. I've got 5 running backs and 5 receivers, so it really could go either way. Still kind of lean the dart throws at receiver just because it's 3 receiver starting team. Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess
you don't need much at this point.
Yeah, I guess I like one other receiver farther down, so I'm not going to worry about that for now. So looking at running back really quickly, I kind of just look at like the high leverage handcuffs, the Ray Davises, the Dylan Sampson I just talked about. Ollie Gordon could be interesting if Achane is hurt to start the year. So he is actually who I'm going to go with just because, there's a chance where Achane's injury lingers or they get him more involved.
Yep.
So Glick finally goes quarterback, gets Jordan Love. That's really solid value in the 13th. Gotta love that. Justin Fields also went 1301, which crazy that he's going that far down personally for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll have a little bit more value than that. So yeah, there's not really anybody here that that I like or care or want anymore.
Thielen, come on.
Yeah, I was like, Thielen, I could just do it just for that. I'm curious to see what somebody like, again, the rookies do. So like a Bashul Tootin or something like that in a very ambiguous Jags backfield. You never really know. So Tank Bigsby could be the one. I still think Travis Etienne is going to lead that backfield for as much hype as there have been like Tank and Tootin are going to take it over. And all of a sudden Travis is going to be third on the depth chart. I'm like, I don't really see it. But again, at this point, when you're taking dart throws, you're like, hey, I might as well take the last drafted guy in an ambiguous backfield. And since my last 2 picks are kickers and defenses anyway, I can cut him if need be. So Ferguson and Rashad White go. And I guess for me, I would take somebody at this point. I would probably take somebody like a Rashad Bateman. Actually, looking down a little bit further, very similarly, if they try to limit any of Chuba Hubbard's workload, I would look at somebody like a Rico Dowdle, somebody who could truly have some standalone value week to week. And if something does happen to Chuba for whatever reason, who's had a little bit of an injury history, I think Rico could step in and be that alpha one. And he showed that he could do it in Dallas for the most part. They tried not to, but he's somebody who, again, potential weekly flex value. And if something happens to Hubbard, now you got yourself at least like an RB2.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. Rashad White's also an interesting one late for me, just because anything that happens to Bucky, like they've already trusted him versus it being a backup that they would have to give the work to. So
yeah, I'm not super scared of like Sean Tucker all of a sudden overtaking him or anything like that.
Glick, I think, is listening in because he took Rashad Bateman. So that's a solid pick there. JJ McCarthy going in the 14th too. Like had I not had a quarterback through the 12th or 13th, that's a very, very solid other quarterback pivot option after like Fields too. So hey, that means that's me. Still some interesting tight end options if you needed one. Hurts was serviceable last year and did okay. Chigakonkwo, I'm actually really high on late. Mason Taylor, I'm also higher on late. Hurts.
I'm showing it on
tight
here.
end 8.
Exactly, tight end 8. Like the volume is there.
But yeah, Mason Taylor I also really like, and then Okonkwo for a breakout. Running backs that I do like, I talked about Sampson, him still being here. I don't think he will be in your actual league, but him being there is very interesting. Woody Marks, if you think that Chubb is just going to turn into dust, is also cool. Monangai out of the Bears is interesting. Reason I was talking about them is because I'm actually going receiver, but I'm going for one of my more late round target throws in a lot of the end of the drafts. Might not have heard his name a lot if you're more of a casual fan, but Isaac Tesla is out of Detroit. They traded the equivalent of 2 third-round picks, I believe, to go and get him. So like this regime likes this guy. And if you know anything about Dan Campbell, when he has a guy that he likes, he goes and gets them. They also just traded away Tim Patrick, effectively being like, we're clearing this up right now. He's our wide receiver 3. So being a wide receiver, anything playing in that Detroit Lions offense can make things pretty interesting. So I think we can probably, just close it out here. Technically, if your league doesn't make you draft defenses and kickers, just draft 2 extras and then drop them before the season starts because it gets you some extra dart throws. But so that's my 2 cents on that one. So not a lot of other guys to talk about here. I'm just going to click them just so Glick doesn't think we ditched him, and so we can at least save the teams at the end.
Yeah, there you go.
ignore my last 2 picks because I'm just picking who's available. So
No, Adam Thielen is his flag plant for the year.
I will never ignore you, Adam.
That's right.
Fun
Welcome
fact,
to the
I was
team.
at his the first touchdown he ever scored, that punt block at TCF Bank Stadium.
Yeah?
I was at that game. That's awesome. I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but this was great. So look at him now.
Yeah, I love it.
Not a lot of other interesting ones. Isaac Grendo used to have value, but then they went and traded for B-Rob, so that's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Will Shipley could be very interesting if Saquon turns into dust after the heavy volume. Will
How's
Shipley
Glick doing this?
Get out of my head, Glick. He's going to listen back to this and at least feel really good because we're saying everything he's doing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's nobody really here that I'm looking. I'm going to put Cam Ward on the team just because I can.
I'm going to tell you a really gross one that you're going to judge me for, but I'll pick him next just so I can talk about him.
That's good.
Cam
I mean, I'm looking through here. I'm like, at this point, I'm
Pop Douglas, baby.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just taking Pop. He will lead the team in targets.
Yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me. And never forget my boy. Totally gross, but it's just one of those things where it's the same as last year where everybody was like, Zeke or Rico, we don't know. And I'm like, because there's no clarity on the Dallas running back situation, taking a final round or a waiver flyer just in case Miles Sanders gets work and they hate Javonte, I don't hate it at that point. I probably would go like a Kyle Manon guy for upside, but that type of thing is interesting when you don't know about the Dallas Cowboys. So really quick, there's my squad. I went running back heavy, obviously, but then came back with strong receiving options, including my tight end over the next 4 picks. Again, none of them feel like an alpha wide receiver, but they all feel like very solid wide receiver 2s. And then I kind of went some more upside picks with the Caleb Johnsons and Abukas and Tesla for rookies. So Eckler and Chubb give me a little bit more ugly, but like safety at running back that I could kind of pair with Caleb Johnson for maybe like one running back to hit out of those 3 guys. And then Drake May very late shows what happens when you can get flex players with your first 10 rounds. So overall, don't hate it for a strategy that I don't normally go in drafts.
Yeah, I like it. And looking first and foremost, shout out Glick. Appreciate you jumping in here and jumping in with us. So that was awesome to see. Goes my neighbors, Josh Jacobs, Kittle. I mean, those are 3 obviously rock solid individuals, onesies to start off at all of those. Trevion Henderson obviously has had crazy hype coming into this, and I think he could be one of the best rookie running backs in the NFL this year. And again, that's saying a lot with Genty and Omari and Hampton there. So hype is certainly real. Pickens, Waddle, Odunze, great wide receivers there. Jordan Mason, great individual, is like a 0 RB type target. Some other upside guys as well. So Glick, I like what you did. When you listen back, you will thoroughly enjoy being able to say that we essentially said, hey, every single person, this is a target for us next round, and then you took them.
My only 2 cents on his is I think Travion's going to be amazing too, but I'm a little bit worried having him as my 2 and then having no other, like every other guy is locked either as like the 2 in their offense or like in a clear battle. So it's like I maybe would have gone one of those, like, instead of Waddle or instead of Odunze, who I like, I just maybe would have gone one other running back because I don't know if Travion's going to hit. And if he does, then cool, I'll use my flex. But like, that's my only concern. But everywhere else, I like his picks. So
yeah, agreed. I obviously went, very much so. Obviously went wide receiver heavy early, and I think I probably have the best receiving core in this entire draft room. I feel like by far. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico, Mike Evans, and then even down a few rounds later into Olave and Pearsall. That's a very solid 5 that are going to be productive no matter what happens. And then I just went safety as far as running back goes. James Conner, Pacheco, Tony Pollard, all guaranteed to be the number 1s on their team. So I like this draft a lot. Mm-hmm. Obviously don't love having Tucker Kraft as my tight end, but gotta sacrifice somewhere when you go top 6 running backs and wide receivers. Purdy, I feel plenty comfortable with, and then just some dart throw rookies and younger guys down at the end, and then a high upside handcuff in Rico Dowdle. So I like the way my team turned out a lot.
Yeah, honestly, had Ingram just slipped 2 more spots and you replaced him with Olave, that would be like perfect for a draft. So
yeah, I agree. Well, awesome. I will.
Well, there you go,
stop
people.
sharing that.
So
jump us
there's
back
your there's your tips for any mock draft stuff. A few of our favorite guys, kind of some of our on the clock panic strategy pivots, things that we like to do. not necessarily things that I'm doing in every draft. I kind of went different approaches here, but it's fun to see how even adding one more pick drafts, like one more position, like an extra receiver, drastically changed it because so many receivers got pushed up. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts. We'll put out some kind of a poll, maybe in some of our group channels to see if people want to vote on like best team or whatever. But it's also all over the place, especially when both of your teams are filled with guys that I have targeted and circled. It's tough to be biased towards my own because I like other people's teams. So, yeah, if you want to, that's another big thing. If you guys want us to do any of your like draft grades for your own home drafts, or you want us to see like how you did or picking the best or worst teams or whatever, we'd love to do that. So let us know as you're finishing up your own draft seasons. That's pretty much it for this one because we've already gone plenty far enough. So we're going to cover all of our like big show game stuff next week. Like Swimming Upstream is going to return. NFL Pick'em. If you guys want to get in on that, let us know. We're going to do a survivor pool thing where you pick 2 teams a week for every week and see how many guys you can get right. Bomb Squads and Butt Cheeks favorite league is returning. A bunch of other stuff. We'll talk about the Guillotine League that's coming on this Monday's draft along with our home leagues draft. So lots of other leagues to start following and everything. We'll get into that all kicking off stuff next week. So in the meantime, Tyler, send us out if I missed anything else.
No, that was great. Great to be back. We know how to talk. We were like, this is going to be like 45 minutes. And then Jack and I got in, and it was the first
32
one.
before the mock even started. I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, we really enjoy being able to talk through this. So we always have fun with it. So we really do appreciate all the likes and comments and things like that. We've started to see them start to tick up over the tail end of last season and into this season. We'll do a lot more with shorts. I got some more editing software and whatnot. So we'll have some fun with that. So appreciate everybody sticking with us. But for this, enjoy the holiday weekend. Enjoy draft weekend. It's one of the best weekends of the year. College football, right into NFL football. Football is back, ladies and gentlemen. But until next time, peace out, Pod Squad.
Bye. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Brotherly Ballers podcast. Check out more content on youtube.com/@thebrotherlyballers.